Good morning, friends. April here with Medwell Health and Wellness. I am so excited. It's my favorite day of the week. I get to join my bestie Emily here. We always have an exciting guest. This week is, of course, like no other. This is the first time we've had somebody with a special medical cannabis application, which you're going to love having this conversation today. So just some housekeeping, friends. We are streaming live to Facebook and both of our Facebook pages at Medwell in Massachusetts as well as Florida, our YouTube channel. Feel free to drop your name and say hello in the chat. If you have any questions, drop them there. We're happy to we'll get to them as we kind of go through our conversation here. And if you are catching the replay, friends, feel free to drop a comment or a question. We will absolutely get back to you. So let's, as many of you know, every Thursday, Emily and I have been doing Medwell Unscripted, but we've really been talking about cannabis, wellness, and you, right? That's been our kind of first quarter going into second quarter theme. And each week we've been bringing on wonderful guests talking about how the plant really helps you in your wellness journey and how it makes you feel better and things that you can do to naturally feel better and live your best life. So today we are talking with Otha Smith. He's the CEO and founder of Tetragram, and we're about to learn a lot about this cool app. It's really a app for your phone that's going to help you to monitor symptoms, and I'm going to let him tell you more about it because he's going to do a much better job than I will. But it's an amazing application that Emily and Otha met probably a few months ago or a few weeks ago and started talking. And I know Emily was very excited about it. Mm-hmm. So let's get started with introductions. I have Emily Waxman, our Director of Community Outreach. Emily, say hello and a little bit about what you are sparkling your sparkle on these days.
Hello to everyone today. And yes, I am super excited to have my friend Otha here. It is just an application that I think is going to help so many of our patients. So yes, April, I was so excited to be able to have a conversation last month with Otha about it and then be able to write a little bit of an article so that we could send that out in our weekly email to our patients just to give them a little bit more knowledge about what it is. And then so excited that Otha could join us here today so that we can learn more about it. And just as far as what I'm up to these days, you'll probably see me at some of your local dispensaries, just with all of my information about the medical program and answering any questions that you may have about your current certification or how do you get a certification or why you would want a certification. So that is really what is keeping me super busy these days. And if you do see me, please make sure you stop by and say hello. It's always an absolute pleasure. So I will turn it back over to you, April, so that we can get going. So I'm so excited for this episode today.
All right, awesome. So Otha, take it away. Tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of how we are talking today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, Emily, again, thank you for the opportunity as well as April to talk further about Tetragram and the impact that it's going to have on not only the consumer but the industry as a whole, right? So very happy to be here today. But yeah, my name is Otha Smith. I'm the CEO and founder of Tetragram, based out of Baltimore, Maryland. So a Maryland native through and through. You could actually see the flag in the back. For us Marylanders, we love the Maryland flag. But I've always been a fan of cannabis. I've been an entrepreneur pretty much my entire life. I started my first company when I was in high school, which was a detailing company. My parents always kept a good stock of some cool cars. And so in order to make some extra money, that was my job. Like, hey, you want to wash these cars? And so that ended up turning into a real passion of mine.
I love that.
Yeah. And so I took it further.
We're amongst friends.
Exactly. So I took that further, created a detailing company through high school, grew it through college, and then ended up selling it. And then went to go work in the energy sector for a while. And then once cannabis started to blossom across the country, I saw this as an opportunity to generate generational wealth. But also, I just really saw the positive impact that cannabis has just based upon my own personal experience.
Wow, love that. I think as an entrepreneur myself, and Emily is an entrepreneur, it's always interesting to hear those first kind of entrepreneurial opportunities that we've had, right? That kind of pave our way to lead us down our path to where we end up. So awesome. And I love the term generational. Like, I love that. I'm going to have to use that and borrow that. So.
Absolutely.
All right, let's just get started and kind of dive into, tell us, what is Tetragram? What is it?
So Tetragram is a SaaS platform for the cannabis industry. And so our main goal with Tetragram is really to just understand the amazing impact of this product, right? And so, if you look at the industry today, there's just so many products that are being presented to the customer. And given that cannabis is federally illegal, there's not a lot of research that us as consumers can utilize in order to make a more educated buying decision. And so the industry has really done the consumer a disservice in the sense that, we've got so excited that, oh, cannabis is federally, legal in the States now. And so let's just start creating all these products and growing all these cultivars. But the thing that they missed is that they didn't put any time and effort into understanding the impact that these products could have on the consumer. And so I truly view cannabis as a medicinal plant. So what I did was create an app that gives consumers the ability to start to keep track of what products they purchase. But more importantly, what terpenes, what cannabinoids go into that product, because that's the true medicinal value of the cannabis plant. We're slowly starting to get people away from looking at THC content and really understand the impact of these terpenes and cannabinoids. Then the user can also keep track of where they made the purchase, which is very important because, I could buy a product from one dispensary and go literally 5 miles down the street. You probably won't find that same product. Then they can keep track of how they consumed it, which is probably the most vital part of the application because, as we all know, some people are like, oh, I tried cannabis and it made me pass out for 2 hours. Well, the question is, how much did you take, right? So we really want people to document how much they consume, and then they can associate that product with a particular medical condition and then rate how effective or non-effective that product was and share that information if they wish across our HIPAA compliant platform. And so by doing so, the customer is actually creating a digital journal, right? Where they're able to look back and say, wow, well, this product really worked. This one didn't. And then they can draw conclusions more effectively. But one thing that was really important when we built Tetragram is the ability for people to share their reviews with other people because, one term that you'll hear, which is synonymous in this industry, is that it's a community, right? Cannabis is probably the most communal plant in the world where prior to COVID, everyone was sharing their joints with people and, it was always consumed among other people. And so we really wanted to foster that by allowing people to share their experiences with other people so that we can learn from each other.
Wow. We've had lots of different guests, especially from the dispensary side. And I think one of our most commonly asked question is, what does that patient experience look like, especially for the first time? And we talk a lot about, picking the right product and I don't really feel like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, Emily, we've never heard the word journaling, right? But journaling and documenting it makes sense. I know that in their systems, they talk about the products, they track the product that the patient might have had. But I think, like for me, I use cannabis for anxiety, and I also have a hard time with sleep. And when I downloaded the app, I was amazed I was like, this is so simple to use. This is great because a lot of times when I go back to a menu, I tend to pick the same product, but I also don't take into account that there's other things that might be helpful because I'm always I'm nervous to change because I'm like, what did I get last time? Or so, it's very interesting. Very interesting.
I think what I got so excited about when Arthur first introduced himself to me and explained the product, is that I believe that there's quite a few cannabis nurse practitioners and physicians out there that do recommend journaling as especially something for, some of those new patients to the program, that, that's an important piece to be able to write that down. But, let's face it, how many of us will put a piece of paper and a pen down, write something on it, walk away, and then have no idea where we left it, or, we'll be upstairs and we don't feel like getting it, or whatever the situation is. But almost all of us have our phone on us all the time. So that's why I was so excited about this, that it's extremely easy to use. You have your phone on you. It's very simple thing to go into and mark your information down. So that's why I was so excited about this. I just think it's just like a no-brainer.
Well, and I think the strain names too is interesting, not, the concept of not having to remember strain names, because I live in Connecticut, you're in Maryland, Emily's in Massachusetts, and each state is a little bit different. So like in Massachusetts, it might be Superman, like they call it Superman, but in Connecticut, it's very like it's ACO3, There's no name for the strain. So we have pharmacists here, where you call a pharmacist and say, okay, I would like the Superman strain, and then they kind of pair it up. So it's just, I like the fact of not having to remember strain names and being able to document that.
Yeah, and to your point, Emily, I mean, that's where we're really trying to get at the bottom of, right? Is because I really could care less about a strain name. A strain name has zero implications on what that product is going to potentially make you feel. And so that's why it's unfortunate that, by each state having a different regulatory system, some show the terpenes, some don't show the terpenes and cannabinoids. But I know moving forward, that's where this industry is going to go, so that, me as a consumer, all three of us as consumers, we walk into a dispensary, instead of saying, can I have Superman? We're looking for products that have this amount of myrcene, or this amount of pinene, or this amount of CBD, and so forth. So, and it's slowly happening because, through the great work that Emily is doing at Medwell and so forth, where we're educating customers, they're asking more intelligent questions. And so that pushback is really making these, not only states, but these brands and cultivators start to say, well, we got to think about things differently and start to provide this information to the public.
Love it.
So true.
So tell us a little bit about kind of how the app works.
Yeah, so the app is, one thing I always like to mention, is completely HIPAA compliant. And so all data is completely safe and encrypted on front to back. We use HIPAA compliant servers as well. And so, data is something that's very important, and we want to make sure that people feel comfortable utilizing our platform. But, you can download it from the App Store or Google Play. And once you buy a product, whether it be a cannabis product, whether it be a CBD product that you pick up from Whole Foods, you have the ability to start typing in that product name. And chances are we probably already have that in our database. But Tetragram is free in architecture. And what I mean by that is, if it's not a product that's currently in our platform, we give that customer the ability to enter in that product name, and then moving forward, it'll always be saved. And so once they make that selection, then again, they can enter in the terpenes and cannabinoids, where they made the purchase. And we have a database for that as well. But, that's hard to keep up with, because new dispensaries are open just about every day now. So we definitely, again, gave that customer the ability to say, hey, if it's not in our database, you can enter in that dispensary location and it'll be saved as well. And then we get into the fun stuff, which is the consumption method. So, we have three categories, whether it be inhalation, orally, or topically. And then we get very granular in Tetragram. So if it's inhalation, for example, we ask the customer, is it a joint that you're using? Is it a bong? Is it a vaporizer, a vape pen? And then after that, what form did the product come in? Was it flour? Was it hash? Was it a concentrate? Because as we all know, if I use a bong as opposed to a joint, and flour as opposed to hash, I'm gonna have a completely different experience, right? And then they can put in how many hits they had. You can, and then the same for orally. So if it's orally or topically, then of course that unit of measurement switches to milligrams, which is, in line with the industry from the product perspective. And then we provide a list of defaults in terms of medical conditions that they can choose from. But again, we open that open architecture so that as a customer, I can say, well, none of these defaults apply to me. I'm using it for X, Y, and Z, and they can enter that and then save that moving forward. So it's really a digital journal that is customizable to your liking. And one thing that's really cool is we give people the ability to include photos too, which was very important because when I was doing my research and just traveling the country, looking at how people are, keeping track of products, a lot of people were keeping a label or keeping a jar of that product. And, some of these jars can be pretty cumbersome to, transport and keep around in your pocket or purse. And so we definitely wanted to give consumers the ability to just take a picture of that product or that label, and that way they can reference it a lot easier. And then they can enter any detailed notes associated with that session. So, hey, did it work for you with your anxiety? Yay or nay? But I've seen some of these notes be paragraphs long. So it's really fascinating just to see how detailed people get. And then again, once you hit save session, we give you the ability because again, it's HIPAA compliant. So do you want to share this with other people so that you can, help other people learn what might work, or you can keep it exclusive to yourself? But the community side is really awesome. I mean, that's something that I watch just about every day when I turn on the application because so many people are just openly sharing their reviews. So it's really great to see. And when you look at that reviews tab, there's two ways you can surf through those reviews because they're coming from across the country. So one way is you can click on that little drill down icon on the right hand side, and that gives you the ability to select a certain medical condition that you're looking to find a cannabis product to meet. And if you do that, then it starts populating data from people across the country who have said, hey, I've used this for anxiety. Or you can just search based upon the product name and so forth. So we give you a number of ways to just navigate the site in order to make it most impactful to you.
Awesome. Our
And I
friend
think
Jonna.
I'm sorry, April, but
Nope.
we should mention too to all of our friends that the app is free as well. There is no extra cost for it or anything like that. So you just go on, you find it in the App Store, like Atha mentioned, and download it. And there is no additional cost, which I absolutely love. So not only is it free and HIPAA compliant, but you just heard right from the horse's mouth how amazing this application can be for you. So just want to make sure that I reiterate that to all of our friends out there.
Yeah, that's a great point. And Tetragram will always be free. We're kind of like, and when it comes to software, it's kind of like Apple and the iPhone. You got the i8, you got the i9. And so we're working on version 2 right now. But moving forward, it will always be free. And then one thing that we also have with Tetragram is a white label version. And so we utilize this exclusively for cannabis and psilocybin research. So we work with universities, we work with independent researchers, and we're actually starting to gain a lot of interest from brands, right? Because, as a cultivator, if I really want to grow a certain strain in order to address PTSD, for example, we can provide that company with a white label version of Tetragram so that whether they conduct this research internally with their own employees, or if they want to cast that net and invite consumers to utilize these products that they're testing out, we can build a platform for them so that they can ask whatever questions they want in order to gather the most impactful data so that they can, make tweaks if needed be.
Awesome. So John is asking, does Tetragram work with doctors or dispensaries?
Absolutely. We work with both, especially, that's how I hunt down Emily. It was like, hey, you're an educated customer. I want to talk to you, So we form alliances with both, definitely medical professionals because, they're on the front lines, right? They're the ones where patients are coming and saying, hey, I've tried all these different opioids or prescription pills and I'm tired of it. I want to give cannabis a shot. And so the medical professional was so eager to say, well, you got to keep track of what you're using. And so they're recommending Tetragram. And the same thing with dispensaries. So, we launched Tetragram on July 10th of 2020, zero marketing support, the height of COVID. When we were finished, we were just like, COVID came out and we were just like, what do we do? Do we continue to launch this app or do we just sit on it and see what happens? Luckily, we chose to launch it, and it actually was the best springboard to launch Tetragram, because with everybody being in their house, being focused on their mental and physical health, the adoption rate just soared. So with dispensaries, they're recommending Tetragram to the customers as well. Because, I used to do it. I'd be like, what did I buy last week? And now they're like, all right, instead of asking us what you bought last week, here's a way to keep track of it.
So I have a question. So the app is free to patients. So obviously, from the entrepreneurial side of things, is there, and it being a business, tell us, so is it something where as a medical cannabis doctor, I can add ads? So is there a marketing interface to the app as well?
Yeah, so not in the current version, but in version 2, the way we generate revenue is a number of ways. One way is through our white label, working with researchers, universities. The other way that we generate revenue is through the aggregate data that we collect, right? So, as customers are sharing their personal experiences with these various cannabis and CBD products, on the back end, we take that data, and of course, it's anonymous. We don't have any way to associate a review with a customer, and we use that as an educational tool. So we take that back to the dispensary and say, you have 500 products in your store. As a bud tender, when I come in, as a patient comes in and engages with a bud tender, some are more knowledgeable than others, but at the end of the day, it's still a guessing game.
Sure.
And so with this type of data, that dispensary agent can now say, okay, well, if you're coming in with anxiety, there's 5 products here that Tetragram has shown 5,000 plus people using in order to treat anxiety. And that's huge when you're trying to really pinpoint a product that is going to work. And you really need that aggregate data from what I consider the community, us as customers, in order to make a more effective recommendation.
Let's kind of dive a little bit deeper into the research piece. So tell us, so you say white label, but like research, can you talk a little bit to the research piece that you guys are doing?
Yeah, absolutely. This is what really makes me excited. It's just frustrating that given that cannabis is federally illegal, we have a lot of these research initiatives, but the trouble comes when it comes to getting funding, right? So, but with these research opportunities, like the one that we're looking to work on with Johns Hopkins University, really excited about. One of the leading medical universities in the country. So they want to collect research on, data on cannabis. So what will happen in this instance is, we'll work with X amount of patients, maybe 100 to 200 patients, have them utilize cannabis over a course of about 2 years. And while they're trying these various cannabis or CBD products for PTSD or, epilepsy and so forth, they'll actually be documenting their use through our Tetragram app that is white labeled. So it could essentially be a Johns Hopkins app powered by Tetragram. And then as Johns Hopkins being a client, we work with them to say, okay, what questions do you want to ask of these participants? And so that way, they drive the experience, collect that data in real time, and then we publish that information to the world. So that's kind of how that works.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I'm like a data girl. So I'm like, I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah. And so it's really like, I look at the data on the back end. It's just so impressive. I mean, sometimes I can get lost in it, but it's really fascinating to see.
John's asking, have you been in the mass cannabis market from the start?
I have not, but Massachusetts, like I've told Emily when we talked previously, is like my second home now. I'm in Massachusetts once a month, sometimes twice a month. I actually leave next week to travel back to Massachusetts. But, we started here in Maryland, of course, because this is my sandbox. This is where I live. But I will say Massachusetts is our second largest market, just because, similar to Maryland, right, where we have Johns Hopkins University, very leading research arm. Massachusetts has Harvard University and a number of other UMass and so forth. So they really have that clinical perspective, which is why Massachusetts really helped us scale very, very quickly.
So are you becoming a Boston sports fan? I mean, we do have like the most winning teams.
I was actually watching the playoffs game yesterday, the Boston playoffs game. I mean, you guys, Boston is very similar to like Baltimore in a sense, a huge sports town, right? Like
Yeah.
Ravens all day, in Boston.
I don't
So
know about those Ravens though.
that's a touchy subject. You don't want to go there.
I know those are fighting words, April.
Yeah. I mean, in Connecticut, I have the Yukon Huskies. That's our basketball, that's our claim to fame here. And the old Whalers.
Well, John and I will make you a Celtics fan, Arthur, one of these days, I think.
All right. I love hats. I'll take a hat for sure.
All right, you got it.
So kind of what's the future? What's the future? Where do you see, I mean, it's pretty, what you've built is pretty impactful, especially from the research side. Like, where do you see Tetragram going in the future?
Oh, how much time do we have?
Not much, unfortunately, but
so many angles. I mean, right now we're working on version 2 as we speak. So, we look to have that out in the marketplace by Q4 of this year. And that's just going to be it's going to be such an improved platform because, this one that we have currently that people love, we built that in about 4 or 5 months. So relatively quickly. The minute we launched this MVP, we started working on version 2. So it's been close to 2 years. So, we're going to allow people to engage directly with each other so that, all 3 of us, we could chat through the app if we wanted to. Allow dispensaries, cultivators, and doctors to communicate directly with their customer. At some point, we want to do integration with like Fitbit and Apple watches so that, as you're using certain cannabis products, what's your heart rate? What are your biometrics? So a lot of great things to come.
It's so exciting.
Awesome. So friends, in the chat here, I dropped the link to Tetragram. You can go to their website, which is tetragramapp.com, and it's also in the Apple Store as well as Google Play, so you can go directly into your App Store to download it. But if you want to kind of learn and see a great video and learn more about the app, you can definitely check it out there. Thank you so much for your time today, Arthur. It was great to learn about this app, and I can't wait to have you on again when version 2 launches, and then we get to learn more about all the good stuff that you're doing.
Thank you both for having me, April and Emily. This was fantastic. It's just all about helping educate not only the consumer but the industry and the power of this, like I said, amazing plant. So I will encourage everyone to follow us on Instagram or Facebook as well at the Tetragram app, and journal away.
Awesome. Thank you again for your time. Thank you, Emily. As always, you're a rock star. Friends, we are on a little bit of a break for the next few weeks, and we'll look forward to seeing you back shortly. But you are always welcome to catch a replay, whether it be on YouTube, Facebook, or go to medwellhealth.net. We have all of our Cannabis Wellness and Use series there, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day, everybody.
Take care.